Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Committee on Education, Wednesday, April 7th, 3 o'clock agenda in room 229. With me is Vice Chair Senator Donna Mercado Kim here in the room with me, and virtually I have Senator Drew Kanuha. Thank you for joining me. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. This Zoom meeting and YouTube live stream event will include the 3 o'clock p.m. agenda for the Committee on Education. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will be reconvening to discuss any outstanding business on Friday, April 9th at 3 o'clock p.m., and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. I'd like to take this time to remind our testifiers that due to time restrictions on our hearings, we will be limiting testimony to 1 minute per testifier per bill. For the people participating remotely, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. When I call your name, staff will unmute you and your time will begin. After your minute is completed, staff will mute you so that we can move this hearing along in an orderly and efficient manner. We have 9 items on the agenda today, and we will start, these are all governor's messages and appointments to various boards. And we will start with GM 788, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Hawaii Teachers Standard Board gubernatorial nominee Lynn Hammond for a term to expire 6/30/2025. We have Lynn Hammond, Executive Director, to testify.
Thank you, Senator Kidani, Vice Chair Kim, members of the committee. It's my honor today to testify in support of Davelyn Lokiwani Han as a continuing member of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. She has served as a faithful member and is currently the chair of our legislative committee, and the HTSB strongly supports her nomination. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Lynn. We have Davelyn on the line with us, and we did send them all of the nominees, send them questions to answer, and I would like to note that we have received responses. So Davelyn, I had some follow-up questions that I would like to ask you to respond to. In your response to question 2, you noted that you provide input from the perspective of neighbor island, rural, charter schools, and Hawaiian language programs. Can you further elaborate on why you feel that perspective helps HTSB in carrying out its statutory responsibility in promoting high teacher standards?
Thank you, Senator Kidani. You know, in the past, we've noticed a lot of Oahu-centric initiatives being pushed out. And our neighbor island teachers, our communities kind of left behind. I've seen it with HSTA in part. I've seen it with other organizations. And I really think that HTSB being proactive to encompass all of the teachers in whatever communities they live in, really pushing to have more voice from rural communities, more voice from Kaiapuni schools, and now even as a charter school teacher, more voice from the charter school community. I think it's important that we get these different perspectives. We've done it with HSTA, you know, and we continue to do that with HSTA, and I see it being a real plus for HTSB to have different perspectives, because we've got all the different schools represented, yeah, all the teacher prep programs represented in one shape or another. No. And I just feel that Molokai, as being a rural community with a charter school, with a Hawaiian language school, you get all of that in just this single body. So I'm hoping that I make an impact on our board.
Thank you for that comment, Darlene. I think I totally agree with you about Oahu-centric. and how we have to make sure that our smaller communities on the neighbor islands are well represented. And I wanted to note that you are a reappointment, and I believe that Ms. Hammonds feels that you have done a terrific job to represent the board in this manner. My other question would be, do you have any proposals that you would like to see Hawaii Teacher Standards Boards take up to help increase available avenues for teacher preparation and pathways?
I think one of the things that I brought to the board last year was growing our own, trying to help moms like myself, you know, who might be interested in a career, go to education. You know, as a parent, we are our children's first teachers, yeah? And if we can set that passion for the parents to become teachers, what better way to share your life with your child? I think that was one of the best ideas, best moves that I ever made, getting into education in my later life, yeah? I really, one of the initiatives that we talked about was growing our own, and I think that the way that the programs are set now, with COVID-19 forcing everybody to go distance, there's more of a opportunity for people from rural communities that don't have a college or even a university on their island. You know, Molokai has our Maui Community College extension. We don't really have a teacher program here, but because of distance learning, people like myself have gone through a teacher prep program, and we were able to graduate and stay at home and raise our families and become teachers. So I really want to do that for other makua who have that i'ini, that desire to become either a teacher or, you know, a counselor, any type of education. I want to really push that this year. I think that's a really good avenue to follow, to look at.
Thank you, Devlin. And we also have a number of written testimonies in support of this candidate. I'd also like to welcome Senator Favela, who has joined us virtually. Members, are there any questions for our nominee?
I do.
Senator Kim, please.
Aloha, Devlin. Thank you very much for continuing to serve. So you've been on the board for how long now?
I believe it's 3 years.
3 years? And in that 3 years, what have you believe you've accomplished? Other than the growing your own that you talked about?
One of the things that when I first joined, it was an item on our agenda, was the licensure for Kaiapuni teachers. In the past, you had to have been either a graduate of Kahua Wai'ola and now a program in Manoa that certified you as a Hawaiian language teacher, a Kaipuni teacher. And there were many of us who had not had that opportunity to go to school and graduate from, you know, either of these programs. And so we felt that it was imperative that we allow our kupuna that have language background, our manaleo that have language background, and teachers like myself who have been working in Kaiapuni going on 20 years to become licensed in Olelo Hawai'i, Kaya Olelo Hawai'i. And so from the get-go, from that first meeting that I attended, we've been pushing for that, and I'm happy to say that it's come to fruition. We actually have a licensure for Kaiapuni, for Kaya Olelo. And we continue to offer these programs to help other kumu who did not graduate from, you know, Kahua Wai'ola and Manoa as a Kaya Olelo teacher, a Kaiapuni teacher, to get licensed, to get certified, so we can be highly qualified in our field. I think that was one of the first things that I worked on, and I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that we got to push that through.
So do you feel that the board has been effective in I know you pointed out a lot of the concerns, so do you feel the board is effective in addressing these issues?
We have really strong discussions in our meetings, in our committee meetings, you know, and Lynn has been really good about providing information both upfront and follow-up. I think so. I think our board, we work well together. There's a mutual respect amongst all of our board members. Some people have more experience in certain areas, and we kind of, navigate to them to kind of lead us through this. Nobody's perfect. We all ask questions. Me, I'm a big question asker. I'm always confused about stuff, so I have to ask clarifying questions on a lot of the items that we have. But the people that present to us, and they're always willing to, follow up with us, give us additional information. And I think that's important, because if you don't know, how can you make a decision, right? You gotta know what's happening. You gotta have as much information as possible in order to make a decision. And we're talking about people's livelihoods here. We're talking about people's jobs. I think it's important for us to be as stringent as possible, but also to see there's some room for us to engage others and to strengthen the programs that we have. And even like with COVID, to find innovative ways to improve those programs.
Very good. Thank you very much. I do think it's important. I encourage you to continue to ask questions. I certainly ask a lot of questions. And yes, you cannot make a decision unless you have that information. But once all the questions have been answered, I just hope that, action takes place and things get done. And that was, sort of my question as to how effective the board, and after having all these lively discussions, if there's action that takes place. So I encourage you to continue to do that and continue to work towards fulfilling some of these goals that you have. So thank you again for being willing to serve.
Thank you, members. Further questions? If not, Devlin, I forgot to offer you to make an opening statement. If you have a closing statement you'd like to make, you can offer it at this time.
Mahalo no kia hui ana. Ano ha'alulu wau. Oye, ale kamaina wau I kia walao ana. Aka mahalo no kia hana e hana ai. No ka pana ona kumu o kia pai aina o Hawai'i. Pa'aki ki ka holomua ana I kia wā. A ka me ole kia kako o. Aole hiki a kako ke uni. So mahalo kia mai na kumu a me na haumana o na kula o ka pai aina o Hawai'i. Mahalo na. Aloha.
Mahalo. That was candidate Devlin Lokilani Han. Mahalo for joining us. Our next GM 789, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board, gubernatorial nominee Glenn Miyasato for a term to expire 6/30/2022. Glenn, are you with us?
Yes, Senator, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to make an opening statement, Glenn?
I'm grateful and also very humbled to have been nominated for this position. I hope, since I would be a novice if appointed to this position, I hope that I will be able to contribute and collaborate with the other members for the good of our keiki. Thank you.
Thank you. To testify, Lynn Hammonds, Executive Director, Teacher Standards Board. Lynn, please.
Thank you, Senator Kidani and members of the committee again. I don't know Mr. Miyasato personally, but I've read very glowing testimony about him on your hearing site, and it looks like he would be a valuable member for the Standards Board, and sounds like he's ready to work. So this HTSB is in support of his nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn, thank you for your response to the questionnaire that we have sent. I have some additional questions. In your response to question 2, you noted that providing targeted professional development is an integral part of your work as a school administrator. How do you plan on addressing professional development for teachers through HTSB? And what specific areas of professional development would you like to see them employ to support teachers?
Senator, thank you. I've come to learn over my long years of working in schools, a variety of schools, that my first job is to listen to the teachers and to listen to what their needs are, because I've come to see a great variety of needs amongst the different schools that I've had the privilege of working with, I really did appreciate hearing the words of the previous nominee, because as you see from my thing, I did spend years teaching on Moloka'i as a teacher, as a young teacher, and also as an administrator in Kikulu Kaiapuni o Niue. So I see a great variety of needs that do come up, and I think that listening to the teachers and hearing what they feel their needs are is the first step in determining how we can support them with professional development. My teachers here at Fern Elementary School have been great. I mean, you know, especially during this time, this very unusual 13 months that have passed here, they've been very clear about what they need, what kind of professional development they need, and especially for our community here in Kalihi at this current time. I think listening to the needs of the community and the teachers gives us the starting point for the professional development that we might offer them and support them with.
Thank you, Glenn. I will tell you that I went to Fern Elementary School for
All right.
2 years. I won't tell you when.
I can tell you when.
No, I'm gonna mute Senator Kim. Any questions for Mr. Miyasato? I do have one more question, Glenn.
Sure.
How can you use your experiences with various schools and to develop effective policies for the different needs for teacher preparation and pathway programs?
I think that it's very important. There's a lot of things I think I'm not good at, but one of the things I feel like I have experience with is sometimes thinking out of the box for solutions for our teachers and for our students and for the various kinds of schools and the different needs of the schools. An example of that would be like, for even here at Fern, as well as I did previously at Niue, finding good substitute teachers was a big issue at both at this school and at previous school. And I think one of the ways that we thought out of the box was we asked permission from the superintendent if we could perhaps train our own substitute teachers amongst the people that we have already as part-time workers or casual hires in our school, because they would already be there and they have the skills, for example, to either speak Hawaiian when I was at Niue or here at Kalihi. They understand our children because they're residents of the community. And I really thank Superintendent for allowing us that out-of-the-box suggestions. So for 3 years, I've been doing that, to training our own substitutes for our own school. And the results have been amazing. I mean, these people are reliable. They may not have the college degree or the teaching degree, but they have proven to us to be very, very excellent substitute teachers who care about our kids. So I hope to use that kind of out-of-the-box thinking and innovation to try to help meet the needs of our teachers as well as our schools.
Thank you, Glenn. That's interesting, very similar to the grow our own thoughts that Davlin had. We also have a number of written testimonies in support. Members, further questions? Thank you, Glenn. Our third, GM 790, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board, gubernatorial nominee Katina Suarez for a term to expire 6/30/2022. Katina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Senator.
Would you like to make an opening statement, please?
Yes, please. I'd just like to say I'm really grateful for this opportunity to represent, again, a small island. I'm from Moloka'i, raised from 10 days old, and this is my community. Like Kumaloke said, you know, we have to grow our own. There are very few people who are willing to come and live here. It's a very special place, and you either love it or hate it. And so we've had to be really creative in filling our teaching positions with licensed, certified teachers and quality teachers for our kids. So I'm hoping to be part of that movement and some of the innovative practices that have taken place, especially to fill our Hawaiian language immersion program and having qualified teachers there. So I appreciate the opportunity to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Katina. We have one oral testimony from Lynn Hammonds, Executive Director, Teacher Standards Board.
Thank you again, Senator and members of the committee. Again, I don't know Dr. Suarez, but I've read the very strong testimony in her support on the hearing site, and the HTSB stands in support of her nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have probably half of Molokai that testified in written support. Members, you have questions for Dr. Suarez? Any questions? If not, Katina, mahalo for taking time to respond to the questionnaire that we sent out. In your response to question 2, you noted that you will research additional programs and opportunities from other states or districts' licensing entities. So what current policies or practices do you see within Hawaii Teacher Standards Board that could use improvement?
One of the things that, just from my own experience, that I've noticed is teachers are coming in with the knowledge, the intellectual knowledge, but not necessarily some of the practical knowledge. I'd like to see our program strengthen the areas of like lesson planning, some of the routines that teachers, you'll see if you go into an elementary school, they have set routines from the calendar in the morning. Like one of the students in a classroom could actually probably run the classroom for you. They have these routines that are not necessarily taught in licensing programs that would take our teachers up a notch from the day they step in the door if they had these opportunities taught to them as part of the licensing process or their education process. So that's one area that I could see some growth in, and we could learn a little bit from other states, and as well as bringing on board some of our current practicing teachers to mentor them.
Very good. Also, so what are some specific issues that your school community has expressed which you believe will help improve the policies HTSB has to meet statutory responsibility for promotion of high teacher standards and accomplished teaching?
Like Kumaloke mentioned, I think the grow our own is huge. Especially for us, a small community with teacher shortages, and like I said, people in my opening, people who want to be here will stay, and then for the most part, other people who, they'll come and they'll leave after a year. So it's really important for us, even as a system with a huge teacher shortage, to improve on our grow our own programs and having people be able to work and earn a living wage while training to be a teacher, and then they would be picking up that practical knowledge as well as the educational or university type knowledge in the training program. So that would be one of the definite areas I would look forward to working on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suarez, for your input. Members, further questions? If not, mahalo. Moving on to gubernatorial nominee Jonathan Gillentine for a term to expire 6/30/2023, also for the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, Chair Kidani.
Would you like to make an opening statement, please?
Yes, please. It's my honor to be here today to be considered for appointment to this to Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. I have to say, to be included with this class is very much an honor. I have not had the privilege of meeting Dr. Suarez yet, but I consider Lokehan and Glenn Miyasato longtime friends and colleagues, and that would make, if indeed I am confirmed, that would make the transition onto the board that much more smooth, more wonderful, because of the connection to these two individuals and others on the board that I know. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here today and to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we have to testify in support of your nomination, Lynn Hammonds, Executive Director, Teacher Standards Board. Lynn?
Thank you, Senator, and members of the committee. I do know Dr. Gillentine, and I can tell you that I can't think of a more accomplished, highly recognized educator than Jonathan, and I think the board would greatly benefit from his service, as would all teachers and students in Hawaii. So the HTSB stands in support of his nomination to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are a number of written testimonies also in support of the nominee. Jonathan, in your, thank you for your answering the questionnaire, and I had a follow-up, two actually follow-up questions based on your response. In your role as a state review panelist and review chair for HTSB, what recommendations can you give regarding the future of state-approved teacher education programs, SATEP, as to how to accomplish the Teacher Standards Board's statutory mandate to promote the high teacher standards and accomplish teaching?
Yes, thank you. One of the recommendations that I have for consideration for new programs or added programs that are adding fields and so forth is to have flexibility. For example, one of the programs for which I sat on the review team was an online program, and having the capacity to allow teacher candidates to enroll in these programs to pursue either a degree or certification through the program, and to be able to do that while teaching as emergency hires, I suppose is the terminology, I think is important because it has that connection to teaching in the real world and facing those situations that might be challenging, but that are, connected to everyday work that teachers do and with real life students, and being able to connect that to what they're learning through the programs that they're engaged in.
Thank you. One of your goals was to provide a system to communicate information about teaching standards and licensure. How do you plan on addressing this if you are confirmed for another term on this board?
Chair Kidani, I've had the privilege of being the recipient of awards and fellowships and connected with teachers across the mainland, across the country in different contexts, some of them principals, heads of charter schools, of course in different contexts than we have here, but all of them very excellent, very accomplished, and be able to access those individuals to ask them questions. How do you folks address this issue? How do you make sure that your professional development is authentic, it's connected to the students' needs, to the communities and so forth? Being able to ask those kinds of questions of my colleagues, I think will help to serve the board in addressing the issues that we face here.
Thank you very much for that response, Dr. Gillentine. Members, any further questions? If not, thank you so much for being willing to serve.
Thank you, Chair Kidani.
Members, we will move on to item number 5, and we are now going into the Early Learning Board nominees. So this is GM 626, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Early Learning Board gubernatorial nominee Leilani Au for a term to expire 6/30/2022. Is Leilani with us?
I am, thank you.
Would you like to make an opening statement, Leilani?
I appreciated the survey you sent, Chair Kidani. I just wanted to let you know that I have valued the short term that I've spent already on the Early Learning Board, and I think we have a lot of good work to finish or continue working on, and I'd like the opportunity to continue, so thank you.
Thank you. And to testify, we have Robert Peters, Chair of the Early Learning Board. Bob, are you with us? There you
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair Kidani, and members of the committee. We stand in support of Leilani Au's confirmation as a continuing member on the Early Learning Board. While she has only been with us a short time, she reflects the center-based director's perspective, which is a voice we need to include in our conversations and our deliberations. And Leilani is a strong voice on behalf of that sector. So thank you.
Thank you. Also to testify, Lauren Moriguchi, Director of the Office of Early Learning.
Thank you, Chair Kidani, Vice Chair Kim, and members of the committee. EOEL supports the nomination of Leilani Au to the Early Learning Board as a representative of the center-based program providers. Ms. Au has dedicated 35 years to the field of early learning as an early childhood specialist, early childhood department lecturer, and PACE trainer. With her extensive experience in center-based programs and supporting the professional development of the early learning workforce, Ms. Au would continue to be an asset as a member of EOB. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is no further oral testimony. Ms. Au, thank you for your responses to our questionnaire. I wanted to take a moment to let you know that in your response to the third question, you noted that the Early Learning Board has a unique and powerful role as advisor to the Executive Office on Early Learning, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that in 2017 we passed Act 202, which the board is not in an advisory role anymore. It is a decision-making and governing board. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And that
I apologize. I guess I needed a better verb that we do. You govern through advice. But yes, I understand that it's a governing board, and I take that quite seriously.
Thank you. Can you clarify, if confirmed, how you will meet your statutory responsibility as a board member to direct and not just advise the Executive Office on Early Learning to meet its statutory mandates to create an early learning system?
Thank you. I'm actually quite interested in the idea of the system. I served in a role when the state was looking at doing a quality rating system years ago, and I think a lot of the work that I was able to do then and that I continue to do now, both as a center director but also through my work with HAIUIC and working directly with center programs. I also was fortunate at the time I got on the board. I jumped right in and I was very involved with the state plan, and I served on a number of the different action groups that were working on it. I'm particularly impassioned about both the quality of experiences for children, for families, and for the providers, which is very challenging to balance all three, but also looking towards the future. I think that workforce development is going to continue to be a challenge as we try to attract people into our field when it is not necessarily a lucrative field for workers, but it's so incredibly valued. And this is only going to work through a systems approach while we're looking at both what exists in the private sector, what exists at the government level. And I think there's a lot of models nationwide that can really serve us well. I'm particularly proud of the work that the Executive Office on Early Learning created with the state plan and my small role in that. As one of the things Bob Peters was able to say, I always ask questions about center programs and how child care workers are being treated in our work as we're reflecting on things, and I will continue to do so. The last part for me with the system is that as we've gone through this pandemic and everything has gone virtual, I've actually been able to participate more in different experiences, public policy. I've joined different organizations just to try to figure out what's going on, what people are doing, and more importantly, what they need. And I think that we set the stage really well before the pandemic hit. We're doing a little bit of recovery now, but I think we're absolutely ready to really look at what children and families and providers need as we move forward.
I think that's an issue that every educator faced as we went into the pandemic, and also parents who had to now be teachers. So thank you for saying that. Can you elaborate on the resources that you believe EOEL needs to accomplish its mission?
So I know that finances are going to be an issue, and I absolutely appreciate the work that went into Act 46 before we had to close down was amazing and gorgeous, and there was just so much opportunity there. But I do think that the work that went into creating it still exists. So right now, our biggest resources are the people who are already doing the work, the different systems that exist, and as a center director myself, who's currently not operating at financial stability, I understand the state's point of view about being able to keep our finances moving forward. But one of the things I think that's important is being able to just make decisions about how we allocate the financial resources. But I do think we've been super impressed with the people resources digging deep. Again, just one example, Executive Office on Early Learning was very available to providers like myself, but also I sent families to their website and their informations as we were trying to figure out how to take care of our children at home while we're also doing full-time jobs. And the website that came out of their work while they were working on that in that way is a fantastic resource for providers. And one of the things I would like to do if I'm appointed in my continued work is to get that information out to the center-based providers. And currently, EOEL, or ELB does not have a family child care person on board right now, so I think that I could help you with that responsibility as well. But I think we need to get the resources out so that people can respond better when they need help. So a lot of the resources, again, really are just the people, and the Early Learning Board has provided me lots of opportunities to meet people who are fantastic resources for our children.
Thank you for that response. Members, any questions? If not, thank you, Leilani, so much for willing to serve. Moving on to GM number 627, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Early Learning Board gubernatorial nominee Melody Vega for a term to expire 6/30/2023. Melody, would you like to make an opening statement?
Members of the committee, for this honor and privilege of considering me for the Early Learning Board.
Thank you. To testify on support, Robert Peters, Chair of the Early Learning Board.
Thank you, Chair Kidani. The Early Learning Board supports the confirmation of Melody Vega for a term on the Early Learning Board. Melody has a long history in early childhood education, and not only does she is a great resource for the FCIL programs, but she brings a great deal of knowledge and experience addressing the workforce issues, and particularly workforce equity. Her contributions in that area, an area we have a great deal of work to do, will be immeasurable. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Also to testify is Lauren Moriguchi, Director of EOEL.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. EOEL supports the nomination of Melody Vega to the Early Learning Board as the representative of Family-Child Interaction Learning Programs. Ms. Vega has worked in the early learning sector and supported workforce development, as Bob mentioned, in various capacities in Hawaii for 33 years. With her extensive experience in the field, Ms. Vega would continue to be an asset as a member of the Early Learning Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Melody, in your response to question 3B, you stated that you wanted to influence support toward the focus and prioritization of the pieces of the system that require the most attention right now. What are those pieces of the system that you see as needing the most attention?
Well, I believe that the climate has changed somewhat since the pandemic, and really knowing what the needs of families and children require us to be in communities, to both rural and urban, to understand and know what that is. And right now, childcare, even before the pandemic, has been a challenge and an issue, and having enough capacity and seats for children so that parents can go to work has been a challenge and an issue. And I think that's one of the pieces to prioritize right now.
Thank you. And in your response to question 6, you noted that you believe EOEL needs to remove themselves from overseeing programs and concentrate on creating the system. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I think it's a difficult thing to do both. And I know it's been difficult over the years to provide funding for creation of a system that doesn't have a program attached to it, and but yet at the same time to get out into the communities, to have enough staff to really engage in surveying, finding out what those needs of the communities are, and to assist the communities with building their own system, because every community is different, and the pieces of a good early care and education system within that community could look different. And so that's why I think the effort toward focusing on the creation of a system is so much more of a priority than overseeing any type of program. There are agencies and organizations out there that are actually overseeing and providing programs.
Thank you for that. Members, further questions? If not, Melody, thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Members, moving on to GM 628, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Early Learning Board gubernatorial nominee Justina Acevedo Cross for a term to expire 6/30/2022. Justina, would you like to make an opening statement, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Senators. I welcome the opportunity to be able to continue service as an Early Learning Board member. I've been able to serve for the last 2 years. A couple of pieces that I'm very active with right now is a small role in helping to advise with some of the Finance Committee to review budgets. But a couple of things I'm very passionate and proud about are spearheading a workforce equity subcommittee of the Early Learning Board, where we're really diving in about what are the needs around compensation and other key issues to propel the field forward. And then lastly, I am serving actively on the search committee for a new director of the Early Learning, of the Executive Office of Early Learning. Thank you.
Sounds like you've been very busy already on this committee, on this board, excuse me. You mentioned in your response targeted expansion of early care and education programs in underserviced areas of the state. Do you have data to use to identify where the underserviced areas are?
I think some of our best data is actually work that came about through the preschool development grant that the Executive Office of Early Learning oversaw the needs assessment, so they're able to look at some of the risk and reach of different early childhood programs in our communities. And it did show some areas that do have higher needs. It was interesting because some pieces actually have higher needs and maybe higher vulnerability in terms of the index, but some communities actually had higher numbers of programs that were available. So you actually need to do a little bit of matching of both, like look at the communities that really don't have some of those programs.
Thank you. I was so anxious to hear your responses that I forgot to let the testifiers have their say. So Bob Peters, Chair of the Early Learning Board, please.
Thank you, Senator Kidani. The Early Learning Board supports the nomination of Justina Acevedo Cross to a continuing term on the board. As Justina has noted, she's been a very active member since her start. She represents the philanthropy community and provides that connection between the private and public funding sectors that is so important, a connection that we want to continue to cultivate. Her role in launching a new committee with Terry Locke from the University of Hawaii has added another dimension to our focus on the workforce and issues of equity.
Thank you, Bob. Also, Lauren Moriguchi, Director, Early Learning Board.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. EOEL supports the nomination of Justina Acevedo Cross to the Early Learning Board as a representative of the philanthropic organizations that support early learning. She has over 8 years of experience in philanthropy, and in her current role with Hawaii Community Foundation, her work is focused on early learning and workforce development. With her extensive experience in philanthropy and support of early learning initiatives, Ms. Acevedo Cross would continue to be an asset as a member of the Early Learning Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Justina, to go on to another question I had, that in the questionnaire, when asked about resources that are needed for EOEL to accomplish the mission, you talked about the needs, but do you have any idea with regard to the resources that would be required? Like, what would you push for as an allocation of resources?
Yeah, I do think there's a couple things to build on that EOEL has already been working on, but one example of that is having some grant and contracting authority to help expand the work in programs. So for example, being able to re-grant funds out to family-child interaction learning programs and communities that need it, it feels like a strong step. I also think there's pretty tremendous opportunity with the implementation of Act 46, and even though there's not necessarily funding undergirding that yet, there's still a lot of foundational work that could be done to set us up for 10 years of all 3- and 4-year-olds having access to high-quality early learning programs. One of those first steps is actually around the kindergarten entry assessment, and EOEL can really play a role in helping to design what that looks like, because that transition moment between any sort of early childhood program into those kindergarten years are incredibly critical. And I can say that both as a kind of more on the academic side of it, but also as I have a child who's at that moment exactly a preschooler who's going to be transitioning into kindergarten. And I do want their teachers to know what kind of prior experience they're coming into that classroom with.
Thank you for that. Members, any further questions? Thank you so much, Justina, for your willingness to serve on the Early Learning Board. Appreciate it. Moving on to, let's see, GM 629, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Early Learning Board gubernatorial nominee Sherilyn Shinoki for a term to expire 6/30/2022. Sherilyn, would you like to make an opening statement?
Good afternoon, senators, and thank you so much for the opportunity to continue serving on the Early Learning Board. It's been a wonderful experience being able to advocate for my fellow parents. I'm sorry, I just got back from picking up my son like a parent does, and so hopefully I can address your questions with some concentrated thought.
Thank you. To testify, Bob Peters, Chair, Early Learning Board.
Thank you, Chair Kidani. Sherilyn Shinoki has been a member of the Early Learning Board whose contributions really help to keep us focused on parents and families. She's also a strong advocate of looking at how the system develops and that we don't overlook the infant and toddler segment of our community. We've been particularly impressed with her own programs in the Family Hui, where she helps parents to learn how to interact with each other, offer networking and support for their roles as a child's first teachers. We support Sherilyn's continuation on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Peters. Also, Lauren Moriguchi, Director for Early Learning Board.
Thank you, Chair
Office of
Kidani,
Early
Vice
Learning.
Chair Kim, and members of the committee. EOEL supports the nomination of Sherilyn Shinoki to the Early Learning Board as the parent representative. Ms. Shinoki began her 17 years in early childhood education as a parent eager to learn more about child development. She's currently the Executive Director of Family Hui Hawai'i, a nonprofit organization that provides parenting support and early childhood development knowledge. With her diverse experience in the field and as a parent, Ms. Shinoki would continue to be an asset as a member of the Early Learning Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherilyn, thank you for your service and your willingness to continue. I wanted to ask you a few questions. Thank you for responding to the questionnaire that we did send. You do have a great depth of experience and knowledge, both as a parent and as a teacher and early child care provider. And I wanted to make sure that as a board member, you realize that you are statutorily required to set the directives for EOEL for statewide policy and not as advisory. And I've said this before because this is very important for us to carry on the mandate of the Early Learning Board. So in reframing your role, how do you foresee yourself taking responsibility for the direction of statewide policy to ensure that EOEL incorporates feedback from parents?
Yes, thank you for that. I do understand that I was around when it was an advisory board and understand that it is a governing board. Really my role in that lane of thought is, really ensuring that the Executive Office of Early Learning follows the mandate that we need to make sure that it's a system from prenatal to kindergarten entry. I serve as the co-chair of the Capacity and Resources Ad Hoc Committee on the Early Learning Board, and we recently we've been trying to ensure that the state early childhood plan has a methodology, a plan to actually make sure that we are on track, that the Executive Office of Early Learning is on track in implementing that plan. So it's we don't always just provide advice, it's to make sure that that EOEL is fulfilling those statutory requirements.
Thank you for that. You made an interesting statement that, this is in question 6, you noted that you believe the EOEL director should serve on the Board of Education in the same capacity as the DOE superintendent serves on the Early Learning Board. And I think that's a very interesting observation. And my question to you is, what impacts do you believe having the EOEL director would have on how K-12 operations function?
If you think about early learning as a system, education as a system, it starts prenatally and then continues all the way up, through college. And so if we want to make the best impact overall, we have to start early. Brain research it's very well known that we need to start early. And then the greatest returns are if we start early. I believe that the EOEL and the DOE need to be able to work together, to work collaboratively, to work for what's best for the children and the families that surround them. It is not something that we can really do separately. We have to be able to work together. You know, I know that the EOEL is not in, the ELB is not in charge of putting our director on the Board of Education, but in that sense, I think if we really want the Board of Education and the Early Learning Board to work together for the benefit of our kids, then we need to be able to have shared leadership. And it was just an observation. I know it doesn't necessarily have any power behind it, but it is an observation. And as a parent, it makes sense to me. As an early childhood educator, it also makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like the observation, actually. It does make sense. And so going further, delving a little bit further, what parts of the state early childhood plan coincides with K-12 education that you think warrants the EOEL director to be on the Board of Education?
I think I'll answer with an example. And I'm the executive director of Family Group Hawai'i, and I understand that I am the parent representative. I do not represent Family Group on the Early Learning Board. But for instance, we are a grantee of the Early Literacy Project, which is part of the DOE K through, it's really a pre-K through, it's a birth through grade 12 grant. Now, when we listen to the literacy plans of the K through 12 partners and listen to the literacy plans of the prenatal to age 5 literacy partners, there is a great need for family engagement in all of it. And it's something that the schools, I believe, if we really embrace the idea that if the parent is the child's first teacher, then when we involve the parents, not so much just fundraising, for instance, but really involve them in understanding child development, understanding how there can be two-way conversation between parent and family, then we can really, between parent and school, then we can really work together to support that child in every way. In the literacy is a great example of it. Pre-literacy skills start at birth. If the parent is reading to the child every day, they are going to increase the amount of conversational turns, increase just the whole health and wellness aspect of attachment theory together, and be able to support the child's whole language environment, which will impact their ability to read, by the time they're 3rd grade. So, I mean, there really is a whole a need for that consistency of family engagement, just from birth all the way through kindergarten entry and then beyond. And studies will show that the more you are engaged in the early years, the more likely you are to be engaged in the primary school and secondary school years. And that is really the key to consistency of having a family be able to support their child through their whole academic career. And it just makes it so much easier to work with teachers when you actually have a relationship and a partnership with them. So you're not so afraid of when the school calls because your child has been acting up. Well, hopefully you already are aware of some of their challenges, the school is aware of some of their challenges, and you'll be able to work together. And I've had that personal experience with my youngest son.
Thank you very much for engaging me in that discussion, Sherilyn. I find it very interesting. Members, further questions? If not, thank you, Sherilyn, for your willingness to serve. Our final GM 630 is going to be deferred. The nominee has notified the governor that she is withdrawing from this nomination process. Members, you have the voting sheets? The recommendation of the chair is going to be to take all of these gubernatorial nominees for both the Hawaii Teacher Standards Boards and the Early Learning Board, and to advise and consent on all of these nominees. I think they all have a lot to offer, and I look forward to working with all of them. So without objections, members, the chair will recommend advising and consent on all the nominees to the Early Learning Board as well as the Hawaii Teacher Standards Boards. Chair votes aye.
Okay, so chair voting aye on all of the nominees, GM 788, GM 789, GM 790, 791, 626, 627, 628, 629. So with that, is there any member on the committee voting with reservations? Any member voting in the negative? Hearing none, we have, let's see, Senator De La Cruz, are you with us? He is
I don't think so.
excused.
Excuse.
Okay, 4 members present, all in the affirmative. Your recommendation and advice and consent is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, members, and thank you to all the nominees who came forward, and we look forward to your service. Thank you for being willing to serve. With that, meeting is adjourned.